I've lived my truth and now I'm ready for my stay-at-home mom season. Where is the provider? Husband. I'm owed. Main story. I've officially archived my party girl era because, quite frankly, I've already completed that quest and there are no more trophies left for me to collect. My followers, the real ones who actually understand my journey, know that I've spent years being the life of every room, but that was just necessary character development for the lead role I'm about to play. Now, I have transitioned into my divine feminine season, and I've curated the most exquisite vision board you've ever seen, filled with cream-colored aesthetics and French country estates. I am ready to fulfill my ultimate purpose as a dedicated stay-at-home mother and a high-value wife who manages a household with grace and style. It's a complete rebrand, a total reset of my digital and physical presence to reflect the luxury lifestyle I am destined to inhabit. And frankly, I've earned it. The problem is that the husband market seems to be malfunctioning lately, and the high-quality men I'm manifesting are apparently hiding in some underground bunker. I spend my afternoons at the most expensive botanical cafes in this city, sipping matcha and looking approachable yet expensive, which is a full-time job in itself. It is honestly exhausting to put in this much effort into my soft life aesthetic, only to be approached by men who clearly didn't get the memo about my new standards. I deserve a provider who understands that my presence is a gift that requires a significant investment. Yet I'm surrounded by low-value energy everywhere I turn. It's like the universe is testing my patience, or perhaps the algorithm of real life is just glitching and sending me the wrong NPCs for this current chapter. My vision board is a masterpiece of manifestation, featuring cutouts of Range Rovers, private schools for my future children, and a diamond that could blind a hater. I consult it every morning like a sacred text, reminding myself that I am a limited-time offer and a premium experience for the right man. I've even started practicing my homemaker skills by ordering artisanal sourdough and plating it as if I spent hours in the kitchen. Because presentation is everything in this new season. It's not about being fake. It's about inhabiting the reality I want until the physical world catches up with my vision. If men can't see the wife material glowing off me like a high-end highlighter, then they're simply not evolved enough to handle a woman of my caliber. The frustration peaked last Tuesday when I was at the Polo Club, a place I don't even like, but where the husband archetype is supposed to congregate. I was wearing a wide-brimmed hat and looking like a billionaire's widow. Yet no one had the courage to approach me with a serious proposal. It felt like a personal insult, as if my rebrand was being ignored by the very demographic it was designed to attract. I started to wonder if I was being too exclusive, but then I remembered that a diamond doesn't lower its price just because the jeweler is having a slow day. I'm a luxury good, and I refuse to be sold at a discount just because the shoppers are currently looking for clearance items. That's when I met Julian, who seemed to have literally walked out of my vision board and into my direct line of sight. He was wearing a tailored suit that probably cost more than my first car, and he carried himself with the quiet confidence of a man who owns several zip codes. When he asked if the seat next to me was taken, I knew the universe had finally stopped playing games and was delivering the goods. We spent 3 hours talking about legacy, asset protection, and the importance of a wife who can represent a brand at high-level galas. He didn't just look the part, he spoke the language of the lifestyle I had been manifesting with such intensity. Julian told me he was a venture capitalist, specializing in emerging lifestyles, which sounded exactly like the kind of professional title my future husband should have. He complimented my refined aura, and mentioned how rare it is to find a woman who understands the value of tradition in a modern world. I felt seen. Not as the person I used to be, but as the polished, elevated version of myself I had worked so hard to create. He even looked at my digital vision board and nodded, saying that his portfolio actually included several properties that looked identical to the ones I'd pinned. It was a match made in the clouds, or at least in a very high-end iCloud backup, and I was finally being recognized. Within 2 days, Julian was already talking about our joint venture, which is how he referred to a potential marriage and family life. He was very clear that he wanted a woman who could be the chief domestic officer of his life while he handled the global operations. This was exactly what I wanted. A life of leisure and management where my only stress would be choosing the flower arrangements for our dinner parties. I felt a sense of smug satisfaction that all my haters from my previous seasons would finally have to eat their words. I was about to become the ultimate stay-at-home mom and I hadn't even had the kids yet, which is the perfect way to start. However, Julian mentioned that he was currently in the middle of a liquidity event and needed to ensure that his future partner was as committed to the vision as he was. He said he didn't want a gold digger, which I found hilarious because I'm a gold creator, but I played along to show I was different. He asked me to prove my loyalty by helping him secure a temporary bridge loan for a property he was buying in my name as a surprise wedding gift. It felt a bit sudden, but in the world of high-stakes finance and main character romances, these things move fast. I figured this was just a final test of my high-value status before the real rewards began. I agreed to move some of my savings, the money I'd saved from my influencer days, into a joint account he set up for our future. It was a significant amount, but I viewed it as an investment in the motherhood season. I was so desperate to start. Julian was so grateful, calling me his partner in power and promising that our life would be a non-stop highlight reel. I felt like I had finally cracked the code to the life I deserved by showing I was willing to build with a man of his stature. It was a beautiful, expensive dream that was finally becoming a reality, and I felt more secure than ever in my choices. The morning after I transferred the funds, I went to our favorite cafe to meet him for breakfast, but Julian was nowhere to be found. I checked his Instagram and the account had been deactivated, which I initially thought was just him going dark for a private business deal. I waited for 2 hours, my matcha getting cold and my heart starting to race with a feeling I refused to call panic. I tried calling his office, only to find out that the venture capital firm he mentioned didn't actually exist at that address. It was a total lack of professionalism on his part, or perhaps a massive misunderstanding with his assistant that would be cleared up by lunch. I sat there in my soft life outfit, feeling like the universe was playing a very cruel prank on its favorite daughter. It's absolutely ridiculous that a man of his supposed standing would have such poor communication skills during a liquidity event. I'm not saying he scammed me. I'm saying that the universe is putting another obstacle in my path to see if I'm truly committed to this new version of myself. It's an ungrateful way to treat a woman who is ready to give up her independence to be a mother. I am still a prize, and if Julian has lost himself, it's his loss. Though I fully expect an apology and a larger diamond once he resurfaces. Main story comments. Anonymous user 1 says, "Girl, you literally described a textbook romance scam. You didn't manifest a husband, you manifested a con artist because you were so blinded by the aesthetic of wealth." Op's reply. "It's called a high-stakes investment in my future, which you clearly wouldn't understand from your low-budget perspective. Julian is a busy man, and minor logistical errors happen in the billionaire world. Stay in your lane." Anonymous user 2 says, "You deleted your old life to pretend to be a trad wife for a guy you knew for 2 days? That's not a rebrand, that's a delusion." Op's reply. "I'm living my truth and transitioning into my highest self. If you can't see the vision, stay in the audience where you belong. I'm the lead in this story, not you." Update 1. It has been 2 weeks since that unfortunate morning at the cafe, and I'm still waiting for Julian to clarify this ridiculous situation. I'm convinced that his accounts were probably hacked by his business rivals who are jealous of his success and our blossoming power couple status. It's the only logical explanation because a man with that much old money energy doesn't just disappear over a bridge loan. I've been staying in my aesthetic era, posting daily updates about patience and trusting the process because my followers expect a certain level of stoicism from me. I refuse to let this minor setback ruin the homemaker brand I've worked so hard to establish over the last few months. My bank, however, has been incredibly low vibe about the whole transfer, acting as if I made some kind of mistake with my own money. They keep using words like fraud and unrecoverable, which is just their way of avoiding responsibility for their own lack of security protocols. I told the manager that this was a private transaction between high-value individuals and that they needed to stop projecting their middle-class fears onto my life. It's so typical of these institutions to try and rain on someone's parade just because they can't fathom a life of luxury and quick moves. I walked out of the branch with my head held high because a queen doesn't argue with commoners about her financial strategies. To keep the momentum going, I decided to start scouting for the stay-at-home mom gear I'll need once the house in my name is finalized. I spent my afternoon at a high-end baby boutique, looking at strollers that cost more than most people's rent. I told the sales clerk that my fiancé was currently closing a major deal and that we'd be back for a full registry soon. It felt good to be back in my element, surrounded by the things I deserve, even if my bank account was looking a bit minimalist for the moment. I'm a firm believer that you have to act like you already have the life you want, so I took several photos with the luxury strollers. However, when I tried to pay for a small cashmere baby blanket, just a prop for my content, my card was declined. I was absolutely mortified, but I played it off by telling the clerk that my international business accounts must be frozen for a routine audit. I could tell she was judging me, which is honestly so pathetic because she's literally a retail worker and I am an aspiring mogul. I left the store without the blanket, but I made sure to walk out as if I had just decided the quality wasn't up to my standards. It was a humiliating moment that I'm choosing to frame as a lesson in grace under pressure for my future children. That evening, I received a cryptic email from an address I didn't recognize, claiming to have information about Julian. I almost deleted it because I don't engage with mystery meat emails, but my curiosity, or rather, my intuition told me to open it. The email contained a link to a private forum where several other women were discussing a man who looked exactly like Julian, but with different names. They were calling him a lifestyle predator, which is such an exaggerated, dramatic term for someone who just has a complex dating life. I refuse to believe that my Julian was the same person as these bitter women's exes. I spent the next 3 hours scrolling through the forum looking for any evidence that could prove my Julian was different from their Gary. Instead, I found photos of him at various 5-star hotels with women who were all trying to pull off the same quiet luxury look I've mastered. It was a bit jarring to see my aesthetic being cosplayed by so many other people, but I figured they were just trying to copy my brand. I didn't see it as a warning. I saw it as a sign that Julian has a very specific type, and I am the peak version. I am the final boss of this season, and these other women were just deleted scenes in his life. I decided to reach out to one of the women on the forum, a girl named Chloe, to see if she could verify Julian's business credentials for me. Chloe replied almost immediately, but instead of talking about venture capital, she started babbling about police reports and private investigators. She sounded incredibly unstable and bitter, probably because she couldn't handle the high-stakes world Julian operates in. I told her that my situation was different because our connection was soul-deep and based on a shared vision board. She actually laughed at me through the text, which was a total violation of girl code and honestly just rude. Despite my confidence, I started to notice that Julian's phone number was still disconnected, and his assistant wasn't returning my emails either. It's becoming a bit of a PR nightmare for me personally, as I've already told my family that I'm basically engaged to a billionaire. My mother keeps asking when she can meet him, and I have to keep making up excuses about Swiss banking summits and private island renovations. It's exhausting to maintain this narrative when the other lead actor is missing his cues. I'm starting to feel like I'm carrying this entire season on my back, and I really shouldn't have to work this hard for a soft life. I decided to go back to the cafe where we met, hoping to vibe check the space and maybe run into someone who knew him. I sat in the same spot for 4 hours, looking like a tragic but beautiful heroine in a French film. But Julian never appeared. Instead, I saw a man who looked suspiciously like a process server watching me from across the street. I ignored him, of course, because I don't engage with people who aren't on my frequency, but it was a bit distracting. I'm starting to think that Julian might be in some kind of witness protection for his high-level business deals. The week ended with a final notice from my landlord because I'd used my rent money for that bridge loan Julian requested. I wasn't worried though, because once the house Julian bought for me is out of escrow, I won't need this starter apartment anyway. I told the landlord that he was being incredibly short-sighted, and that he'd be sorry when I'm a local celebrity living in a mansion. He didn't seem impressed, which just goes to show how little people value visionaries in this city. I'm staying focused on the end goal, the nursery, the garden, and the life of a pampered wife. Update 1 comments. Anonymous user 1 says, "You're being evicted and your fiancé is on a scammer forum, yet you're still talking about vision boards? The level of delusion is actually impressive." Ops reply, "It's called steadfast faith. If you give up the moment things get messy, you'll never reach the luxury tier. I'm playing the long game, unlike you." Anonymous user 2 says, the process server you saw was probably trying to hand you papers because your billionaire used your identity for his other scams. Wake up! Ops reply, my identity is a brand, and brands are often targeted by imitators. Julian is protecting us. You're just projecting your 9-to-5 paranoia. Get a hobby. Update 2. 3 months have passed since Julian's temporary disappearance, and I've had to make some strategic pivots in my living situation. Since my landlord was too low frequency to understand the concept of a delayed luxury payout, I've moved into a high-end co-living space with a friend. I've told my followers that I'm currently minimalizing my life to prepare for the grand transition into my estate, which is a very chic way of framing it. I still spend my mornings at the same expensive cafes, though I've had to switch to regular coffee because matcha is becoming an unnecessary overhead. I am still maintaining the wife era. Look, even if I have to steam my clothes in a bathroom shared with 3 other people. The situation with Julian has become a bit complicated because I found out that the house he supposedly bought in my name doesn't actually exist on the city registry. I'm sure it's just a shadow listing or held in an offshore trust that common clerks can't access, but it's been a hurdle. I've been trying to reach out to his business associates, but every lead turns into a dead end or a wrong number. That sounds suspicious. It's honestly so unprofessional of his team to leave his future wife in the dark like this during such a critical merger. I've had to start doing my own detective work, which is not very soft life of me, but sometimes a queen must act. To make matters worse, that girl Chloe from the forum has been harassing me with more updates about Julian's supposed victims. She sent me a link to a news article about a serial romance fraudster who was recently spotted in the Caribbean, and the photo looked vaguely like him. I told her that the man in the photo lacked Julian's couture energy, and that she was clearly obsessed with dragging me down. I'm a high-value woman, and high-value women don't get scammed, they experience complex financial transitions. I blocked her again on a second account she made because I don't negotiate with digital terrorists. I've had to start consulting for some smaller brands, basically being a micro-influencer for tea companies just to keep up the appearance of my lifestyle. It's beneath me to promote detox teas, but I'm calling it my philanthropy season, where I help smaller businesses grow with my refined touch. The pay is peanuts compared to what I'll be managing as Julian's wife, but it allows me to keep buying the right moisturizer. It's very difficult to maintain a divine feminine aura when you're worried about whether your next collab check will clear. I feel like the universe is really stretching my main character arc to its absolute limit, and I'm ready for the payoff. The real plot twist happened when I went to a high-value networking event. A $200 entry fee that I manifested by borrowing from my roommate. I was hoping to find someone who could help me unfreeze the joint account. Julian and I had, but instead I ran into a woman wearing the same ring. We both stared at each other's hands. Well, I was staring at her hand because mine was currently empty and she told me it was a family heirloom. I felt a surge of righteous indignation because that ring was supposed to be mine and this woman was clearly identity thefting my future. I confronted her right there in the middle of the cocktail lounge, demanding to know where our husband was. She didn't react with the sisterly solidarity I expected. Instead, she called security and started screaming about how I was a crazy stalker. It was a complete public relations disaster for my brand, and I was escorted out of the building like a common fangirl. I was absolutely livid because my reputation is everything, and this woman was clearly a plant sent to discredit my transformation. I sat on the curb outside, my soft life heels hurting my feet, and realized that Julian might be testing me by seeing how I handle competition. It's a very old school way of doing things, but I'm willing to play the game if it leads to the mansion. I spent the rest of the night recalibrating my vision board, adding justice and truth to the corner of the French estate. I'm starting to think that Julian might be involved in a very high-level loyalty test involving multiple potential candidates. It's like a real-life version of The Bachelor, but with more offshore accounts and fewer cameras to document my grace. If that's the case, I'm winning because I'm the only one who hasn't read a broken character and called the police like a loser. I am the most dedicated to the vision, and that has to count for something in the universal ledger of high-value wives. The boomerang hit me the next day when my consulting brands all dropped me at once because of the security footage that leaked. Apparently, someone filmed me accosting that woman, and the unrefined energy I displayed didn't align with their tranquil tea brand. It's so unfair that one moment of passionate advocacy for my marriage can be used to cancel my professional career. I'm now unemployed and unhoused technically since my friend told me I had to leave. But I'm choosing to see this as a total ego death. I am being stripped of everything so the universe can fill me back up with Julian's billions. I've decided to relocate to a cheaper city, or as I'm telling my followers, I'm going on a spiritual retreat to the heartland. I packed my vision board into a cardboard box and left my high-end life behind, at least for now, to focus on my core. I'm convinced that Julian will find me wherever I go because our souls are geotagged to each other in the astral plane. I'm sitting on a bus right now, looking at a picture of a stay-at-home mom on a magazine, and I know that's still my destiny. I just have to survive this character-building montage before the happy ending finally arrives for me. Update 2 comments. Anonymous user 1 says, "You borrowed money from your roommate's emergency jar? You're not a queen, you're a thief with an aesthetic. Julian didn't scam you. You two are basically the same person." Up's reply, "It was a short-term liquidity transfer that I will repay tenfold when my estate closes. My roommate should be honored to have funded a moment of truth in my journey. Peace and light." Anonymous user 2 says, "The security footage didn't show passionate advocacy. It showed you screaming at a stranger about a ring you never even own. You've lost your mind and your brand simultaneously." Up's reply, "Angles and lighting can be very manipulative. I was speaking my truth into the universe, and the universe heard me loud and clear. My brand is currently in stealth mode. Watch me rise." Update 3. 6 months after the Polo Club incident, and I am currently living in what I call my rustic chic period in a trailer park. I've told my remaining followers, all 12 of them, that I've gone off the grid to connect with the Earth's frequency and prepare. It's a very curated way of saying I'm broke and my divine feminine wardrobe is getting stained by low-quality laundry detergent. I still have my vision board taped to the wall of the trailer, though the corners are peeling from the authentic humidity. I spend my days manifesting by walking through the local Walmart and pretending I'm secretly undercover for a reality show about wealth. I finally got a direct message from Julian last week, or at least from someone using his private code of emojis. He told me, well, the message said that he's been held captive by international regulators who are trying to steal his algorithm. This confirms everything I've been saying about his high-stakes life and why he had to disappear so abruptly from my side. He asked me for one final proof of devotion, a small processing fee of $500 to unlock his encrypted assets. It's such a cinematic turn of events, and I felt a surge of vindication that I was right to never give up on us. The problem was that I didn't have $500 as my philanthropy season had left me with a negative balance of actual cash. I had to make a hard executive decision and sell my designer handbags and the resale value of my wife era hats. It felt like pruning the garden to allow the big trees to grow, but it was still a bit emotionally taxing to see it go. I managed to scrap together the fee and sent it to the secure offshore link he provided via a burner app. I felt like a heroine saving her king, which is the ultimate stay-at-home mom flex in this narrative. After I sent the money, I waited by the main road of the trailer park for 3 days, expecting a luxury SUV. I wore my last clean linen outfit and held a manifestation stone I found in the gravel, trying to keep my vibration high. But the road remained empty of anything other than rusty pickups and disappointment from my neighbor's loud music. I checked my secure link, and the website had expired, which I'm sure is just a security protocol to prevent hackers. I'm still patiently waiting for the signal that it's time to go to the Mediterranean. The reality check came when the local sheriff showed up at my trailer, but not to give me a royal escort. He was there because Julian, whose real name is apparently Gary, had been apprehended in a low-budget motel. At 2 towns over. The sheriff told me that Gary had defrauded over 50 women using the exact same vision board logic and scripts. I laughed in his face because it's so typical of the system to try and criminalize a visionary like Julian by calling him Gary. I told the sheriff that he was just a pawn in a global conspiracy. He didn't seem to appreciate my insight, and instead he showed me a confession video where Gary admitted targeting aesthetic-obsessed women. I watched the video and felt a momentary flicker of discomfort, but then I realized it was just a deepfake created by enemies. Julian would never use the word manipulate. He uses the word synergy and legacy in every conversation we had. The sheriff left me with a victim support pamphlet, which I immediately used as a coaster for my herbal tea. I don't need support from people who don't understand the billionaire mindset and its complexities. My family has started calling me, begging me to come home and get a job, which is so regressive of them to suggest. They want me to go back to being a nobody instead of the high-value wife I've already decided I am. I told them that my contract with Julian is still active and that I'm waiting for the re-entry phase of our relationship. It's hard being the only enlightened person in a family of realists who think work is the only way to live. I am staying in my trailer estate, holding the line for the soft life I've already paid for in tears and handbags. I've started a new TikTok account called The Waiting Queen, where I document my life as a displaced monarch waiting for her king. It's getting a lot of hate, but hate is just unrefined attention that I can still monetize with the right engagement strategy. I tell my viewers that if they haven't been tested by a global regulatory agency, they aren't truly playing the high-stakes game. My rebrand is stronger than ever because I have lore now, and lore is what turns an influencer into a legend. I am the legend of the stay-at-home mom who refused to give up the dream. I'm currently manifesting a new set of linen clothes because my current ones are looking a bit Perry-loved and distressed. I know that Julian or Gary, whatever his cover name is watching my videos and feeling my unshakable loyalty from his containment cell. He'll come for me when the heat is off and we'll laugh about this trailer season over vintage champagne on our yacht. Until then, I am the chief domestic officer of this 12-foot-wide kingdom, and I am ruling it with grace. My true purpose is just on a temporary hiatus, and I am perfectly fine with that. Update 3 comments. Anonymous user 1 says, "You're literally watching a video of the guy admitting he scammed you and you're calling it a deepfake. This isn't loyalty, it's a medical emergency." Ops reply, "The truth is subjective in a world of digital manipulation. I choose the version where I'm a queen and you choose the version where you're a hater. I'm winning." Anonymous user 2 says, "You sold your actual clothes and bags to send money to a guy in jail? You are the ultimate victim season and it's not chic at all." Ops reply, "It's called liquidating assets for a strategic bailout. You clearly have no experience in power couple dynamics. Go back to your fast fashion life and leave me to my legacy." Update 4. It has been a full year since I embarked on this divine feminine transformation, and I am still here radiating high-value energy from my rustic sanctuary. I've recently learned that Julian, or Gary as the unimaginative call him, will be away for a few years in a minimum security retreat provided by the state. I've sent him a vision board for inmates so he can manifest a shorter sentence and a private exit when the time comes. I'm currently pivoting my content to prison wife aesthetic, which is a very niche but highly engaged market that I am uniquely qualified to lead. It's not the stay-at-home mom life I initially planned, but it's a seasonal extension that allows me to showcase my unwavering commitment. I've had to take a part-time role as a hospitality coordinator at a local diner which the UN evolved call waitressing, but I'm doing it, ironically. I tell my customers that I'm shadowing the working class for a book. I'm writing about the human experience before wealth. I wear my wife era pearls under my uniform because it's important to remind the universe of my true status, even when I'm carrying a tray of low-vibe pancakes. Every tip I earn goes into my re-entry fund, for when Julian and I finally start our French estate chapter in a few years. It's a sacrifice I'm willing to make for the final act of my reality. My haters on TikTok keep telling me that I've hit rock bottom, but they don't understand that rock bottom is just the foundation for a skyscraper. I'm currently manifesting a producer to buy the rights to my story, which I've titled The Manifested Marriage, a story of high-value loyalty. I know that my soft life is still out there waiting for me like a pre-ordered package that's been delayed by customs. I am not a victim of a scam. I am the protagonist of a complex romance that most people are too basic to ever experience. I am still ready to be a dedicated mother, and Julian's legal season is just giving me more time to perfect my aesthetic. The sheriff came by again to tell me that Julian has married another woman, a former victim who is cooperating with the prosecution to get a settlement. I laughed until I cried because it's so obvious that she's a distraction. Julian created to throw off the authorities while he stays loyal to me. I told the sheriff that marriage is just a legal contract and that soul contracts are what really matter in the influencer universe. He looked at me with pity, which is the ultimate low-frequency emotion, so I walked away to go plate some artisanal toast for a customer. I am the prize, and I don't need a registry to prove that my husband is out there somewhere, liquidating his love for me. I've started decorating the nursery in my trailer using reclaimed items and vintage chic scrapwood I found behind the diner. It's important to build the nest even if the bird is currently in a government-funded cage, and the eggs haven't been manifested yet. My vision remains clear, and I refuse to let facts or legal records or common sense get in the way of my happily ever after. I'm a stay-at-home mom in spirit, and the home is wherever my my vision takes me. The world can keep its reality. I'll keep my soft life era as a limited time offer that never truly expires.